I want to thank you for allowing me into your home today. I want to share a healing that I experienced over the past few weeks and give you a little background of what happened. Some time ago, I had been carrying some extra weight for a long time. And when you carry extra weight, of course, there's a consequence to that. And my left hip began to degenerate. Well, I knew what it was. I spent many years as a healer. I was one of the probably the highest paid masseurs in America for many years back in the 80s and the 90s. And so I knew what it was. And every so often, I would stand up and there'd be an excruciating pain in my hip, enough that it would drop me. And, I didn't really want to keep it, but I really didn't want to go to man's way to try to get rid of it. I had an older brother who had a hip replaced. I had a lot of friends that had hip and knee replacements. And most of them for the same reason that mine was, they had too much extra weight. And whose fault is that? It's not God's fault. It's our own fault. We're responsible to take care of our own bodies. Well, some time ago, I recalled some amazing things that happened in California, in Los Angeles, back in the early 1900s. And I went to do some research, and I found Azusa Street, and I found a website that had all of the information on DVDs, and I purchased all three of them. And I went to studying what went on at Azusa Street, and here's the story. There was a young black man, and his name was Seymour, and he had become baptized in the Holy Spirit and started speaking in tongues. And he went out to California and he started sharing that. And out of that came this great awakening back in 1906, the great Azusa Street awakening. And the whole ministry was about getting people to release their tongues or their mouth to God so God could pray through them. And if you think about it, the Bible teaches that the rudder of a boat steers a great boat. And what's the steering mechanism of the human body? It's the tongue. Well, we say, I want to submit to the Father, but we don't give him our tongue, so are we really submitted? Well, we're really not, because we haven't given him the part of us that steers us. So in the process, as I studied Azusa Street, what I found was that the men and women, mostly the women, would come to the services at Azusa Street, and they would sing and pray in their spirit language and the tongues. And when they did that, God would show up. And he would show up in such a mighty way that oftentimes there would be a 2-foot cloud of his presence covering the whole floor of the building. And before they could pray for anyone, they'd have to push the cloud out of the way. Well, I thought this was pretty interesting. They were worshiping him in his own language, and so he was getting all the prayer that he desired through them. Well, some really interesting things happened at Azusa Street. There was a fellow that came in with one leg amputated, and as they prayed for him, all of a sudden his leg reappeared and his foot shot out from underneath of his jeans, and he had his leg back. There was another fellow who had his arm torn out in an industrial accident, and when they prayed for him, his arm completely reappeared. His shoulder and everything just reappeared, and he had a new arm. Well, these are creative miracles. Well, I said, God, I need one of those creative miracles. I need something to happen in my hip. Well, I was invited to a revival service, and a friend of mine who's an apostle from Nigeria was ministering, and I shared the story of Azusa Street with the people in the meeting, and how as people prayed in their spirit language and sang in their spirit language, God showed up, and amazing healings came to be. Well, unbeknownst to me, the apostle caught what I said, and a little bit later, he asked all the people in the congregation who spoke in tongues to please come forward to the front of the assembly. And a bunch of people came up front, and for 15 minutes, everybody started singing in the Spirit. They were singing in their prayer language. And all of a sudden, a warmth hit my hip, and I got a brand new hip. And that was about 3 weeks ago. Well, when I got home, I said, Father, what do I need to learn from this? And he told me something, and I'm going to give it to you. It's probably the most valuable thing that I've ever heard about healing. He said, son, healing only comes in my presence. Healing only comes in my presence. And when the people in that congregation sang in the Spirit, guess what happened? God showed up. And when God showed up, healing came. Well, I'm sharing that with you because I really want you to get the same thing that I got. Whatever it is that you need in the way of healing, I want you to receive it. Now, I was looking in the book of Chronicles and the 6th chapter about this King Asa. And King Asa had a problem with his foot. Apparently, it was a very infected problem. And I mean, it could have been gangrene or something. I have no idea what it was. But anyway, it was a problem that was giving him great distress. But instead of running to God, he ran to the physicians. And 2 years later, he was a dead man. Well, here's what I'm going to share with you. You have to get into the presence of the Father to be healed. You can pray for anything you want to, but he said, and this is what he said to me, and he said it to me clearly, healing only comes in my presence. So this is the importance of praying in the Spirit. So if you don't pray in the Spirit, I would love to have you have that gift. Now, if you'll go to this website, drpatricia.com, and go to her teachings, she'll take you right through to the immersion in Holy Spirit with the manifestation of speaking in tongues. And why is this important? Well, it's important because if you want to be whole and healed, you need to get into the presence of the Father. Now, if you don't know the Father, allow me to share this with you. The Father loves you so much that he sent his Son to pay the debt for all the wrongs you've ever done. And all you have to do is ask for forgiveness. You have to ask for forgiveness. You say, Father, in the name of your Son, Jesus or Yeshua, forgive me for all the wrongs I've ever done. And I would like to give my life to you and serve you from this day forward. And if you'll do that, there's another step. And now you say, Yeshua, Jesus, I would like you to immerse me or baptize me in Holy Spirit. And when Yeshua baptizes you in Holy Spirit, then one of the manifestations is speaking in your own spirit language. And so if you'll go through the videos on drpatricia.com, how to be baptized in the Holy Spirit, you'll learn these things. Now, if there's anything that we can do for you, obviously we want to do it because you're important to us and you're super important to our Father. So get your healing. Get into his presence, open your mouth, and allow him to speak through you. God bless you.